Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, January 31st, 2008. I'm James Spencer.
I'm Steve Wilkes.
And I'm Andy Sparks.
And we're having a little special episode today. We got together to judge our contest, our You Know You're a Home Brewer When contest, as brought to us by the Brew Hauler people, by the way, because they supplied our prizes. And we thought, while we're together, we should sample some special beers that we've been saving, and we'll answer some home brewer questions. Now, Andy, tell us the beers, the four beers that we've got, the four main beers that we've got to taste, and why they're special. We don't usually do commercial beers on this show, but they are special beers.
That's true. We have four Belgian beers, two of which you can acquire here in the United States. Roquefort 10 and Roquefort 8, I think. Is that correct? And then the other two beers were beers that were graciously given to you by a fan of Basic Brewing Radio. And these are two of the world's most famous beers and some of the hardest beers to get in the world. The Westfalen 12 and the Westfalen 10.
I think it's actually a 12. No, 8 and 12. You said 12.
12 and 10. Okay.
We've been drinking beer already.
We actually had the Party Guile beers earlier, and they're both very tasty.
Yeah, if you listened a couple episodes ago, Andy and I formulated recipes out on the patio with a small beer and a big beer from a single mash, and Steve was our peanut gallery.
I was a groupie that day.
And what do you think of the beers?
They're very good. The big beer was really big to my palate, and I liked it a lot. The little beer had a little astringency, we all agreed, but still very tasty.
Yeah, I think the little one's going to grow on me.
The big one will grow on me, and I'll have to walk a few extra miles to get rid of it.
What'd you think, Andy?
Yeah, I think the big beer is really going to shine probably in about a year after it lays down for a while and the malty flavors kind of mingle together. It's very viscous and thick, a lot of mouthfeel, a lot of alcohol warmth. I think you said it was like 10.5%. Crazy big beer. Very nice, sweet, delicious beer. Like I said, I think it'll age well. The little beer, like Steve said, a little astringency on the tail end of it a little bit, but an easy quaffing beer, nice little roasty character to it as well.
Yeah, very nice. But we have to thank Alex, who's our buddy who has given us the Westfalen beers, and that's how we're assuming it's pronounced. So thank you, Alex, very much. And more beers. I've got to give more of my beers to him. He seems to like my beers. So, so anyway, we've decided to do a blind tasting. Only I know what you guys are about to drink. What we are about to drink. This is the first beer of the few.
This is the first of four?
Yes. What are you smelling, Steve?
Really good beer.
I get a little yeasty note, some of that nice Belgian character. Not, obviously, no hops, just a kind of a light maltiness, but definitely kind of like a yeasty kind of little funkiness.
I get a little bit of banana.
Yeah, there's some fruit, banana fruit, and I agree with Andy completely. There's no hop characteristic in this at all to speak of. Wow, this is a great beer, though.
Would you agree, Andy? Is this as good as you may expect?
Well, this is delicious. The banana character definitely comes through when you taste it. I didn't pick it up. I might have a little bit of a head cold keeping me from really smelling very, very well tonight, but. Delicious, yeah. It's a star.
Do you want to know what it is? Any guesses?
Oh, I would have no idea. But it also has kind of a bready. The yeast is real bread-like to me, and I really like it. I really like the balance of it. It's just tremendous.
It does have that little breadiness to it. Yeah, don't tell us yet. Let's finish the whole.
Okay. Yeah, it might be good to let that warm up a little bit
Yeah.
because I think the flavors are going to become more complex as it goes along. Are you? Is there any flaws that you're picking up so far?
There's not enough of it.
Well,
That's a flaw.
you have a point. But let's go before we get to our contest entries. Since if we just did the contest winners, it would be a very short show. So I want to thank everybody who's entered. We had lots and lots and lots and lots of entries, and we've decided to instead of like reading most of them and leaving out a few at the end, we've decided to kind of do the winners and the runners up, and just do a handful of them. So thanks to everybody. Even if you don't hear your entry, we appreciate your entry, and it was really tough. We're all good. So that's a good thing to have.
That's right, and we're really glad that the writer's strike is about over.
So let's go to some. You guys can. Usually I do listener email by myself. So let me let you guys help me with email this time. This is from Doug in Portland, Oregon. He says, I just finished bottling my first batch of beer in 15 years, my Belgian American IPA, and I wasted no time in brewing up another batch of porter recipe from John Palmer's How to Brew. I bet that's good if it came from John. In my rush to brew, however, I made a rookie error, and I thought I'd take you up on your offer of advice. When did I offer that? When did I let me go back and... No, I'm just kidding. I fermented my first batch in a plastic bucket and conditioned it in a 6-gallon glass carboy. After hearing about the benefits of fermenting in glass, as well as the enticing promise of watching a virtual snow globe effect in the bottle, I decided to use the carboy as the primary for the porter. After filling the carboy with a full 5 gallons of thick black wort, however, I realized that the bottle was looking extremely full. I wonder if I should use a blow-off tube for that. This is foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Not having a blow-off tube handy, however, I decided to throw an airlock on it, relax, and have a home brew. All this happened yesterday morning. I checked on the progress this morning and found the wort happily bubbling away. What luck! As you can probably guess, my luck was not to last. I returned home from work this evening to find a very vigorous stream of krausen slowly cascading out of the airlock. I quickly removed the airlock, washed it with, he says PWB, but I'm pretty sure it's PBW, powdered brewery wash, right? Brewer's wash from 5 Star. Sanitized in an iodophor solution, filled it, and stuck it back on, only to watch the process repeat itself within minutes. Fortunately, I had the foresight to stick the carboy in a handy bathtub. So essentially, he was worried that he's ruined his beer because he's had to, the stuff is coming out the top, and he's had to take the airlock off. What do you think, Andy? Is his beer ruined?
This has happened to me a couple times, and
Couple?
yeah, okay. Well, I mean, yeah, a few times, maybe 2 or 3 times. And this is a common problem, but he has nothing to worry about. The truth is, as long as there's that positive pressure develops inside the carboy, everything's coming out of the carboy, nothing's going in. It's better if this doesn't happen. You want to avoid this. And he was right to think about doing a blow-off tube. He probably should have done that. But yeah, just keep it clean. Yeah, he's going to be fine. No worries.
That ever happened to you, Steve?
Happened to me about 3 weeks ago. Had exactly this happened. I had my beer going, and I think I called you about it, and I was like, "Oh no!" And just as Andy just said, I mean, it's positive pressure, and it just kept putting, the krausen out the top. And I didn't have a blow-off tube handy, and it happened on a Monday. Your store was closed, and so I couldn't get by. I couldn't do anything about it. So I kept cleaning the airlock. I cleaned the airlock 4 or 5 times before it went through that portion of its fermentation, and then it settled down and was great. And it's in the bottle now, and I hope it'll be a good beer.
Happened to be a couple batches ago. I usually have blow-off problems when I do wheat beers or beers with a lot of wheat in it, because it seems like to me that the wheat krausen doesn't go down as easily as just barley alone, and so it just keeps crawling out. And so what I did was I put just capped it with aluminum foil, so that the stuff could still come out from underneath it.
Yeah.
But crickets couldn't get into it. So as long as no foreign bodies fall in there, you should be okay. All right. Any more words on the beer?
Oh, it's delicious. Although, if this is one of the West Fletron beers, I probably wouldn't sell the stock in my 401k to try and get some more of this. I mean, it's delicious for sure, but I'm waiting to see. Hopefully
it gets not the world's best beer. Is that what you're saying? Okay. This is a note from Jamil Zainashev, who says, I just got word that Y Yeast is going to do another run of the Rosalaire blend in April. And he said lots of people have been asking for it, and this would be great to get the word out that it's coming. So we appreciate that from Jamil. I've got a sour smoked porter in the basement that was fermented with the Rosalaire blend. And Andy, was it you and I that tried that the other day?
We had a little sample that wasn't carbonated yet, I don't think. It was nice. It not super sour yet. Had a little bit of that funkiness to it in the nose. Kind of complemented the smokiness of the beer. We'll see how it goes when it gets carbonated.
Yeah, it's in the secondary. It's in the carboy down there. And it's just going to sit until I think it's ready to drink or to blend. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm definitely going to pick up another packet of the Rosalaire and play with some more of that. James from Tullahoma, Tennessee, says, I've been searching for a cheap or free brew pot. I happened to mention it to my grandmother today, and she said that the family has a large copper pot that's been handed down. Right now it's in the attic, and if I wanted it, I could have it. Until now, I've been searching for a stainless steel brew pot. Is there anything wrong with brewing with copper? The only thing I can think of is if it allows scratches and therefore bacteria to grow. However, wouldn't that bacteria be killed by the boil? I'm hoping it's an okay pot to brew in since it's free. However, I don't want to compromise my beer for a few bucks. So, copper, we haven't talked about copper brew pots. We've talked about aluminum. We've talked about stainless steel. We've talked about enamel. What about copper?
Yeah, well, he could probably take that brew pot down to the local metal salvage yard and be able to buy 3 stainless pots for the price of that copper pot.
Or actually, what I thought was not salvage, but it's probably an antique. It's probably something that they were making candy or jellies or jams in. God knows how old it is, and it could be worth a whole lot of money. So get the brew pot and then go sell it. Go on what's that? Antiques Roadshow.
Yeah, there you go.
And then call up Andy and buy a conical fermenter. But to address the question, I don't think there's anything in the world wrong with using that as your brew pot. I'm sure it would work just fine. I think you might leave the patina inside, not scratch it and scrub it a whole lot. But I think it would work great.
I mean, in the old days, they called in the breweries, they called the brew kettle the copper. So I mean, copper's been used for brewing for centuries. So the heat transfer ability of copper is superior than stainless steel or aluminum. I mean, otherwise, the coils of tubing that we use for chillers would be made out of something else. I mean,
right. And we put that in our beer, so I don't think you'll have any problem. I think it's the way to go. The whole scratching thing is really all about your fermenters, things that are going to hit on the cold side of your brewing process, not on the hot side of your brewing process. So shouldn't have to worry about that at all.
And every now and then I have to read something that validates myself. I have to, it's just the kind of guy. Yeah. Well, Christian from New York says, I want to follow up with you about my Doppelbock that would not carbonate. So he emailed and said, this stuff won't carbonate. Have I ruined my beer? Well, as mentioned last week in a message I sent you, it turned out fine. I was surprised how fine it turned out, in fact, because it won second place in its category at the 2008 Upper Mississippi Mashout. Woohoo! says Christian. So congratulations, Christian.
I'll drink to that.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, you guys.
So I did just drink to that.
You guys are I'm behind here. You guys are at the bottom of your glasses. Yeah. Sum up that beer.
I don't know how. Bready, yeasty, banana, well balanced, sweet and malty. More.
It's probably should have described the color of it. It's not super dark. This was kind of a lightish color beer. James hasn't told us what it is yet. So to me, it was in the kind of neighborhood of what I expect a triple to look like, kind of more straw color than brown or amber. Had a nice head on it when you brought it out. Had a couple fingers of head on each glass, which stayed, and there's still lace in every glass. So it had a lot of body and head retention. Nice beer. A little Belgian funkiness. Obviously, we knew it was going to be a Belgian. So
do you want to know what it is?
Yeah.
It actually came from the brewery of St. James. It was my Belgian brunette.
Whoa.
I wanted an honest opinion, so
You got it.
well, there you go.
I feel honored.
That's
terrific.
It would have been. You probably shouldn't have told us until the very end when it could have been mixed in with all 3 or 4 of the beers. And when you brought out the 5th beer, we would have realized you're playing us. But
well, I have a feeling it's going to be blown away here very soon. So I didn't want to. I didn't want it to be. Well, that first beer that you brought out was, in comparison to these, was lousy. So that was kind of a sneaky thing to do. And kind of self-serving, but it was risky in that if it sucked...
you would have just edited all this out.
Yeah, the first portion of the show would be gone. We'd be starting all over.
So, me and Steve couldn't make it tonight.
That's right.
So okay, all right. My face red. Well, good. I'm glad you guys. I'm glad you guys liked it. Why don't we pause for a second? And I will go get the real first beer of the round. Okay, we've changed our mind. We're not. The reason I wanted to do the blind tasting was to try to sneak my beer in on you to get a proper evaluation, and that worked. So basically, what we're doing is, it's an honor that Alex has given us these. Westphal-Adrian beers, because the 12 is supposedly the best beer on earth. So tell us kind of a bit of the background of that, Andy.
Well, there's a couple different websites out there that do beer rating. There's Rate Beer and Beer Advocate, both great sites. And I think I'm pretty sure on both sites, this beer is rated either number 1 on both sites or right at number 1 and 2. And this brewery, this is a Trappist brewery in Belgium. They really brew this beer to supply their brewery with the funds to stay in business, to operate, and to do God's work. And they really have no intention of making any more money than that, or doing any more than what they need to do to survive. But their beer has become internationally known as one of the best beers in the world, if not the best. Part of that is because of how rare it is, and one of the way you get this beer and the only way to get this beer officially is to actually get on a waiting list. They will tell you when they're going to release it. You have to actually go to the brewery. You have to reserve your case or 2 cases or whatever. You have to actually go to the brewery and pick it up on the day that it's released. The little town is just jammed with people coming to get their beers. It's kind of a crazy little system they have, but it's the one they want and it's what they like. The only place you can get their beer commercially, legitimately, is the pub across the street from the monastery there. When you buy it from them, they want you and they make you promise, I'm not sure how, whether it's some signed form or whatever, but basically you're promising not to resell this beer. Yet you can go on eBay or several other places and you can find this. Because it is so rare, there's a demand for it.
When you look on eBay, you're not buying beer. You're buying a collector's bottle in in a collector's bottle that is intact in its original condition, and anything that's in the bottle is, a bonus or whatever. But what you've brought us here today, what we've decided to do is to taste the Rochefort and 8, and then the Westphal-Adrian 8, and then so we'll alternate. And this beer is supposed to be darn close to the other one, right?
Well, they're both similar styles. They're Trappist beers. I don't know that they're anywhere comparable. We'll know after we taste them how similar they are. But these are beers that you can legitimately acquire in the United States. You can get them in most major cities. So, you can go get this one. You can know what this beer tastes like. Hopefully after this is over, we'll be able to tell you how closely they compare.
So while we're drinking these good beers, we're talking about home brewing. So we have a letter from Mark in Waukesha, Wisconsin. He says, I have a few questions concerning starch conversion testing. I'd originally purchased Provine iodine solution to use for this, but later found that it was recommended that I use tincture of iodine. Tincture is clear, Provine is dark colored. Is that right, or is it the other way around? It seems like I've got tincture of iodine that's dark. Anyway, which is the correct one? Also, I've heard you as well as the others mention to use a porcelain plate. Is porcelain a must? If so, why? So I guess there's some background on what he's talking about anyway. What is a starch conversion test, and when do you do it, and why?
Well, the starch conversion test is done at the end of your mash, and what you're trying to determine is whether you've converted all the available starches into sugars. You want the enzymes to break up those starch chains into the simpler sugars, the little sugar chains. And so what you want to do is you want to take a little bit of the liquid part of your mash. You want to put that in a saucer. It doesn't have to be porcelain. Porcelain is just going to be easy to clean. It won't stain easily. You could use a glass dish, but a nice white. The reason most people suggest porcelain is because it's going to be white. It's going to give you good contrast so you can see whether this test works or not. And so what you're going to do is you're going to put the liquid part of your mash, just a little bit, maybe a tablespoon, into the saucer, and then just put a drop of iodine on it. And you want to use the dark iodine. And what's going to happen is it's going to hit when it hits the starches, if there are any present, they will turn dark purple or blue, almost black, inky black. And that tells you that there's starch granules in the solution, which means you need to wait a little longer for the enzymes to do their work. So that's how you do a starch conversion test.
So what do we think of this beer?
It's delicious. It's got a real malty nose to it. It doesn't have the little Belgian-y funkiness that the beer that you gave to us first had. Very pleasant and all. This has a much more robust, malty, rich character. Almost like a little bit of a raisiny smell. And then the taste is delicious and kind of like toffee candy or something.
Yeah, I get a lot of raisins and toffee from this. But I got to tell you, I'm not so sure I didn't like your beer better.
Oh, stop it.
I know.
I like this one better.
I don't think I do.
Really? Yeah. I like the. I mean, Andy's right. This is very raisiny, very caramely. The nose is a lot. I didn't get a lot of nose. There's a little banana from mine, but this one really leaps out at you with the caramel and just kind of a dark fruit kind of thing going on.
Picking up what you remember when we've done a show in the past about that Belgian candy syrup. Mm-hmm. I'm picking that up in here. That kind of brown sugar character that you get from that.
Now it's interesting, but I put a full bottle of that Belgian candy syrup in that first beer that we had.
Wow.
So, maybe it has to do with gravity. Maybe it has to do with the grain bill formulation. Maybe they added a lot more sugar in this one. Maybe they did a longer boil to caramelize the sugar. Maybe they added the sugar at a different part in the boil to darken it more.
I don't know. It's probably got an addition more grain in it. Because like the beer that we started off the evening with when we tried the beer from our party guile. It had more of a raisiny character, and that was mainly just because of the intense amount of malt that it had. So it didn't necessarily need to be that candy syrup.
Yeah, well, this is a darn good beer, and yeah, it's like I say, we're not craft beer radio, but you know, I'd certainly buy this again.
Yeah, beautiful mouthfeel. It coats the mouth nicely, and you know, it's very silky. It's delicious.
So, shall we pause and go on to the next one, and we'll go on to more questions.
All right.
Okay, before we move on, why don't I give the recipe for my Belgian brunette that Steve likes so much?
I think you should definitely give that recipe out.
And I think we've nailed down why you like my beer better than the first beer.
You mean better than the Roquefort?
Right.
Because it's not as sweet. The Roquefort had such a big Belgian candy flavor and nose going for it, and it was just too much for me. And the analogy that I came up with was that the Roquefort reminded me a lot of a chocolate, like a candied center, you know, the soft candied center chocolates. It was just so sweet, and those beers don't appeal to me as much as the beer that you're getting ready to tell folks how to make.
So the Belgian brunette is, get your pencils ready, 9 pounds of Belgian Pilsner, 4 pounds of malted wheat, and a bottle of the Belgian candy syrup. And you put that Belgian candy syrup 30 minutes from the end of the boil. I think my boil was 60 minutes. I mashed at 153 degrees for 1 hour. I did a mash out. Half an ounce of Styrian Goldings and 1 ounce of Hallertauer at 60 minutes is all the hops that was in that. And the White Labs 550 Belgian ale yeast. So the original gravity was 1066, and it finished out at 1008. So it's 7.6% alcohol. So anyway, there's that. So we have the Westfalen. That's as close as I'm going to get to it. I don't know.
My guess is, James, you're pronouncing it better than everybody else here. So
I'm not even trying.
So we have the Westfalen 8. It's a way different beer.
Yeah.
Just smelling it, I haven't tasted it yet, but just smelling it, it's a lot more funky than the other one.
Now I really like this beer, and this is lighter in my palate. It's not as sweet and thick and syrupy as the Roquefort was. And I get a graininess out of this. This is really good stuff.
It's got an interesting nose. I'm picking up almost kind of like I want to say almost like an Asian spice or something on the nose.
I'm getting posh spice. Maybe not.
No, I'm not sure. It's got, you know, it'd be nice if we had like a nice tulip glass. You know, we could.
Okay, shut up.
Swirl this around in and really get a good.
I don't have tulip glasses. I'm sorry, I don't have the proper glass. But it's. I can see what you mean with the Asian. That's interesting that you picked that out. I smell the Asian stuff, and now Steve has fainted.
The flavor of this beer is incredible. It's, you know, I don't want to gush, you know, but it's very.
Why not? I did.
I've really never had a beer quite like this. It's got this very soft nature to it. The bubbles seem very small, although I'm always very skeptical when I hear people talk about champagne and small bubbles versus large bubbles. But this has this very kind of softness, you know, in the way that it feels on your tongue. I'm very intrigued by this.
See, I love the Belgian funk, that weird, the smell that you get, the smell of the Belgian beers, you know, that you just don't get in any other beers. It's just this weird funk. I don't know. I have no descriptors, but that's to me what kind of captures my imagination on this beer. And my wife Susan is silently sitting aside, and she's finished her share. Which I guess means she's looking for the bottle. She's looking for the dregs.
It has an interesting creaminess to it. It's I want to there's almost like a little I want to say like chocolate, but it's not chocolatey. It's this, but it's like chocolate something. It's like melted chocolate or something. The way it feels in my mouth.
There's no. It's almost thick without being sticky at all. There's no stickiness at all.
Yeah, that's what I really noticed when I first sipped it was because the appearance of the beer it's fairly dark brown, and I was kind of expecting something really sweet with that big Belgian candy thing going on. And when I tasted it, it was clean. Mm-hmm. But Andy's right. I mean, it's real silky and the bubble thing is exactly right. I think. I feel like I'm judging Iron Chef here.
Now the first 8, the first Rochefort or Roquefort 8, that sugar that you could tell that there was a lot of sugar in there because it just hit you. It's a harsh, kind of almost hot alcohol kind of. This beer's got a lot of sugar in it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that there was a lot of it there. There's probably the same amount, but it's so much softer.
The other thing that I really like about this beer is that I can taste grain in it, and I like that in beers. I really like that kind of graininess. It's like I feel like I'm getting something that really is from the earth somehow, and so there's an earthiness and I can taste the grain and I can taste the sweet. This beer it's got the most complex. It's like it hits every base, for my palate. So I think this is tremendous.
Okay. Something kind of nutty, kind of almost, and it may be what I was talking about. The spices, almost like that peanut, like Thai food. The way they have the peanuts and that. I don't know. It's. Oh God, this is so good. I wish we had another bottle.
Okay, on back to the homebrew, and I hope that people don't mind that we're doing. I wanted to. These beers are so special that I didn't want just us guys to sit around and drink them. I wanted to share them with our audience, even though this is not a craft beer, commercial beer show.
Right.
And I think that there are things that we can learn from tasting commercial beers as homebrewers that we can aspire to. So that's my excuse.
We do all that stuff off the air.
Okay. Doug from Fraser, Michigan. I made beer just before surgery with the thought of taking care of it while on disability. Well, Percocet got in the way of diligence. So I looked in the bucket today. I hope you're okay, Doug, by the way. Smelled okay. The beer smelled okay, but funky white powder floating on top. Some gray also. I put it into secondary, waiting your thoughts before I taste it. Should I bottle it if it tastes okay? So Doug says... What do you think, Andy? It looks funky on the top. Should he bottle it if it tastes okay in the secondary?
Wow. You and I both have had this question many, many times, and the answer is always the same. If it tastes good, bottle it. If it tastes good, drink it. Don't throw it away if it tastes good. If it tastes funky, you still might want to save it. If it tastes bad, you probably ought to just pitch it. If it tastes sour, send it to James.
No. Oh, well, sour. Yeah, sour's good. Sour's good. We've talked about this on the program before. Andy has the poor, being the homebrew store owner on the weekends, on Saturdays, I've been witness to people bringing down what's wrong with this beer examples. So people hardly ever bring good beers down to Andy. They bring the beers that they don't know what's wrong with it. So yeah, there's a possibility there's something weird going on there. It could be benign. It could be that it tastes good in the bottle right now. It could be that the funk will set in later on. So maybe if it tastes good right now, you should drink it.
And the truth is, I've seen stuff that people say, "Oh, I have this stuff floating on top of my fermenter," and the It turns out it's just some little clumps of yeast that's flocculated together, and got a little bubble of CO2 trapped inside it, and it's causing it to float to the top. And it's nothing. It sounds like he's got a little bigger problem than that, but unless we were to actually look at it, we can't tell. So the obvious answer is, if it tastes good, drink it.
Yeah. And I've had emails. I've got a glass carboy for the first time, and I've ruined this batch of beer because there's stuff just swirling around in my beer. It just looks like a snow globe. Oh my God, I've ruined this beer. This is just huge infection in there. What's wrong with it? Well, that's your yeast. That's your yeast playing with, doing its job, flying around. If something is if it's the first time you've seen something like that, and you don't know what to expect, it's going to scare the heck out of you. So, anyway, yeah, everything might just be just fine. Now, should we pause again? Well, we got a couple more questions, but before we get to the contest results, but
let's pause.
Andy's anxious, so we'll pause. But we're now consulting Blam, Brew Like a Monk, from Stan Hieronymus, which is an excellent book that if you have any interest in brewing Belgian or Trappist ales, you should buy this book. It gives you really good insight into the brewing process. And we're now on to the Rochefort 10, and Andy's reading about it in Blam.
Yeah, the Rochefort 10. It says it's a 1090. It starts original gravity is 1096, 11.3% alcohol by volume. I haven't tasted it yet. But I've smelled it, and it does smell a lot like the first one that we tried, just maybe a little more intense.
I don't think it's as thick or heavy, though.
Huh.
It's interesting. It says that it doesn't have a lot of hops in it, only 27 IBUs, but it starts with Pilsner and caramel malt, and then it says, as far as adjuncts, white sugar, dark sugar, and wheat starch. Spices spiced with coriander. The hops are Styrian, Golding, and Hallertau, and the yeast is their proprietary Rochefort yeast.
Well, it's certainly interesting. I mean, there's a lot more dark fruit in this one than the first one, but it's still a heavy presence of that candy sugar. What I characterize as the candy sugar, just lots of alcohol. Just candy sugar. That's the fermented candy sugar.
Yeah.
This is dessert for me.
It reminds me a little bit of a port, because you almost get that almost vinous, almost you said raisin before, but almost that kind of grapiness, but that intense grapiness that comes like in a tawny port or something like that. It doesn't taste so much grapey anymore, but more of that kind of thick burnt sugar kind of tasting. It's yummy.
Yeah.
This would be great with a creme brulee.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. You're right. It is a delicious beer. It's very nice. Yes.
Brulee in a glass.
I would.
Brulee in a glass.
It is. Yeah. If you were to run a blowtorch over the top of that, I wonder what. Okay. Omer from Zor Moshe, Israel, says, "Hi from Israel." Omer says, "It seems I'm somewhat sloppy with sanitation. I've used a local brand bleach, which I gather by itself isn't much. I rinse well with tap water, soap, and some scrubbing." So he follows bleach up with tap water, soap, and scrubbing. "And during the brewing and fermentation, I'm not very careful, at least no way near how careful you guys are, and what people describe on message boards, etc. I've talked to a couple of local homebrewers, and they seem to be as careless as me, and yet neither of us has ever had an infected batch. Could it be that contaminants are rarer over here than in the U.S.? Maybe the hot climate and lack of water?" So what do you guys think? I mean, is Omer just lucky that he hasn't had a contamination, hasn't had a contaminated batch, or is it the environment over there in the desert in Israel?
I would say it's probably definitely luck. that he hasn't had any infections. I think that the climate probably does play a role in it. You probably can live in a climate that is more conducive to bacteria and microflora in the air. A drier climate probably would help. That doesn't mean that you can't find bacteria and microflora, in a desert or even in just a dry climate. I think the best measure is to be very careful with sanitation, and you just hate to ruin a beer, and your time will come. Everybody ruins a batch of beer, and it's not a good feeling when you have to pour it down the drain.
I think luck too, but I also wonder if perhaps some of the beers aren't contaminated, and that perhaps the style of beer that he's brewing is one that would be drunk quickly and not made to be laid up for a year or two or three to allow the infection to propagate. So, you might have a beer that's I have one, in fact, right now that I put up, almost a year ago, and I got out a couple bottles the other day and looked, and there's a little tiny ring around there, around the bottle, and I thought, oh, good heavens. So I went ahead and poured one and drank it. You know what? It tasted fine. That doesn't mean it wasn't infected, but whatever it's infected with was not a problem. So, at least to my palate. So, it could be that there is some infection, but it's not a problem.
And Steve, we were looking at these questions before, picking them out to talk about on the show. And Steve, you brought up a good point that in the conversation with Charlie Talley from 5 Star Chemicals, the maker of Star San, he said that if you clean well enough, you really don't need to sanitize because you've essentially sanitized by cleaning very well. Right. So it could be that if Omer is using bleach and then soap and scrubbing, it could be that he's just doing so well at cleaning his equipment that he's essentially sanitized. He thinks he's being sloppy, right, but maybe he's doing a good job, doesn't know it.
Exactly. And it also gets back to one of the earlier conversations, I forget which one it was, but if the beer tastes good and you like it and everybody's happy with it, then don't worry, have a home brew, to quote a prophet.
Our own prophet, Charlie Papazian.
That's right. It does sound, though, that he's got the little sanitizing process backwards. He's sanitizing, then he's washing. And it may be weird just getting it backwards or whatever, but this is a perfect opportunity to send people back to the episode with Charlie Talley. He really does a good job of talking about sanitizing and the proper process for going through it all. If you do it right and you clean, then you sanitize right before you use it, that's the best way to go.
Yeah, and I also wanted to give some props to Andy because he's right. Poor sanitation really will catch up with you. I mean, you might get lucky for a long time. You might have a little infection that doesn't really ruin the beer, but the fact is, one of these days it's going to jump up and bite you, and it might jump up and bite you on a beer that you've maybe spent a lot of money on ingredients on. Maybe you're going to brew this big, giant beer, and ingredient-wise it's expensive. It took a lot of work to make it, yada, yada. You're planning to enter it in a contest, and something happened, and it went south. And so it's just best to really follow that sanitation. I think mostly you can make good beer if you sanitize properly.
And also, I want to, in addition to the conversation with Charlie Talley, I want to call your attention to in the archives to the conversation with Merle Landman of National Chemicals, talking about the use of iodophor. We're going to move on to the best beer in the world. Okay, here we are with the Westvleteren 12, the best beer in the world, allegedly. Cheers, gentlemen and lady. It doesn't nearly have the nose of the last one that we did.
But then I have a big foamy bunch of head on top of it, so I'm not sure whether the smell is kind of underneath the foam right now.
It's not in a tulip glass.
Yes, it would be nice in a tulip glass. It's nice. I get the little yeasty notes. I don't get a lot of the burnt sugar that we were getting on the last beer, the Roquefort beers. And the nose, pretty soft. aroma, really.
Very soft and sweet, malty. I give it a 10.
Instead of a 12.
I don't know. I don't have anything profound to say about this. It tastes very good. It's it's kind of washing over me. It's quite a rare thing to drink what is arguably the best beer in the world. And how do you comment on that? I don't know.
It's very, very sweet.
It's very luxurious. It is sweet. It's sweeter than the first one. And what was interesting about the first Westfälteren we had, it had a subtle sweetness that kind of approached at the end without being too sticky or cloyingly sweet. This has a little more sweetness, but it's still very soft and very approachable, very velvety kind of.
Yeah.
Almost buttery.
This may be sacrilegious, but I think it could use a little more hops. Really, I think it's delicious, and that taste was a little more bitter than the first one I took, but it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, between the two, I'm not so sure. I don't think the 10 is the one I prefer over this one. This one's nice. It's a little bit too sweet, but still delicious.
Megadittos to that.
Yeah, I think that the fact that it's a rare beer and that we're having the privilege of tasting it is something in itself. It's something to note the experience. But I tend to agree that I tend to prefer the Rochefort 10 over this one just because it was more complex. There was more going on. My senses had more to kind of to play with.
Now you said I think you just said you thought you liked the Rochefort 10 over this one. I think you meant the Westfälteren 10 over the Westfälteren 12. So.
No, I actually. Now, of all the beers that I've had this evening, I enjoy the Westfälteren 8 the best.
Yeah, that's
the funky aromas, just a wonderful experience. But this beer, I think, is maybe number 3, in my opinion. It falls behind the previous beer that we had, and with number 1 being the Westfälteren 8. Number 2 being the Rochefort 10, then this one, then the Rochefort 8.
Now, I would put the Westfälteren 8 first, then I would put your beer second.
Oh, stop it.
No, listen to me. Because the other Rocheforts and this beer are just too sweet for me. And so I realize that I'm kind of a one-trick pony on the sweetness factor, but what I really liked about the Westfälteren 8 and what I really liked about your beer was that they just seemed to have this really nice balance between sweet and kind of this graininess or earthiness, and that no one characteristic dominated any other characteristic. In the other three, in this beer and the Rochefort, I just felt like the sweetness was so dominating, and that doesn't appeal to my palate as well. That doesn't mean that they're not great beers by any means. And trust me, I think we would agree that we're splitting hairs on a lot of this in terms of, is this a good beer? And of course, this is a great beer. My goodness, if I could brew a beer like this, I'd be a multimillionaire. But nonetheless, I mean, there's just something about the palate of your Belgian brunette and the Westfälteren 8 that really appealed to me. And it had to do with the graininess that was still present, and that's not present in this beer.
James, I like your beers a lot. Okay, I just want to start out by saying that. I'm gonna go with the Westfälteren 8, my number 1 beer. Westfälteren 12 be my second, and then the big Rochefort, the 10, and then the 8 followed by that. So, and I like all your beers, James. And I do feel honored to get to try this beer. This is delicious. This beer also, like the first Westfälteren, has the soft palate. It's almost like the bubbles it's either less carbonated maybe, but you can see it's got lots of head, but it just doesn't have that intense bubbliness, fizziness that sometimes some Belgian beers, especially some like triples and stuff, have. They sometimes have lots of kind of abrupt carbonation, and this is very soft.
Now, I have to say that since we've been talking, this beer's been warming up. It's smelling a lot better. But I still think...
Oops.
Yeah, oops. Let me...
Let me smell yours, James.
No, you're not touching my glass. But no, I still think... I like the funkiness of the Westfletern 8 a lot better than this one. It smells delicious. And Steve is right. We are splitting hairs here. They're all just world-class, wonderful beers.
I'm thinking a trip to Belgium and a little afternoon in that little pub across the street from the monastery sounds like a really good idea.
I agree. Okay, let's finish up with our contest. We had tons of entries, lots of entries, and we are just going to read the honorable mentions, and then we'll read the top 10, which will get brew haulers, courtesy of the brew hauler people. So I looked, and they don't have a website apparently. So look for the brew hauler product at your local homebrew store, and I use it. It's in our low-tech lagering and decoction mashing DVD. We hear a lot about broken carboys, and this is one product that will help you get a better grip on your slippery glass carboy. So, Andy, do you want to say anything? I mean, you've dealt with them since you are the owner of thehomebrewery.com. You deal with the brew hauler people yourself. Yeah,
we've been doing business with these folks, for years now, and it's one of the products that I personally use. I have several straps. One sits on every carboy that's in use. I don't take them off and try to reuse them. I stick them on and let them ride through the whole process. These guys are terrific. They're hardworking folks, and we ought to give a shout out to Beth and Tom for hooking us up with these things to give away to people and maybe make people a little safer in their brewing.
There we go. All right, the honorable mentions. Let me make sure I got the right stack. Yes, yeah. I do. The honorable mentions. You're a home brewer when you spill hot wort on your spouse and tell her, "Thanks for taking one for the team." By the way.
My spouse wouldn't react that way. I can guarantee you.
That was from Tom in Charlottesville, Virginia. Thanks, Tom. And this is, I don't guess we have a name on this one, but from New York, you're a home brewer when Michael Jackson equals revered beer enthusiast, not the king of pop. So that was very close to making it in the top 10 for sentimental reasons.
Brian writes, you're a home brewer when you find the only brew pub in Bermuda and drag your wife there in the middle of your honeymoon! !
Where's Brian from?
I don't know. Brian is from Concord, New Hampshire.
All right. Bobby from Huntsville, Alabama. You're a home brewer when you wake up in the morning, go directly to your carboy, and your mood for the rest of the day is determined by how well your fermentation is kicked off. Been there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we all been there. As long as there are little bubbles coming out of the airlock, all is well with the world. I love the smell of sulfur in the morning, says Bobby. So, these are the big top 10. And thanks again to everybody else for... first of all, thanks to everybody else for sticking through this show. This may be a long one. I don't know a running total of how long this show is, but I don't think
on the wall is spun around several times.
Okay. John from Menominee, Wisconsin. You're a home brewer when you choose to layer up in your house as opposed to turning the heat on. We've chosen to just keep the heat off in our living room to use it for lagering during the winter months.
Now, this is dedication. This is homebrew dedication.
That's an expensive temperature control unit.
But he's got a walk-in freezer right there in the front room. Dan from Caddo Mills, Texas. You know you're a home brewer when it takes your mother-in-law 4 tries to find the refrigerator that has the baby's milk in it. Chris from Yorktown, Virginia. You know you're a home brewer when you hope that pitching yeast into the wet vac will salvage your brewing disaster. You can identify with that, Steve.
Yes, I can.
Corey from Williamsport, Pennsylvania. You know you're a home brewer when you leave for the recycling center with 1 container full and come back with 5. We had lots of bottle references out of the trash, but that one was our favorite. And we also had 4 people who mentioned cleaning stuff off the ceiling. So Joseph from Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. MA is Massachusetts, right?
It is.
Okay. You know you're a home brewer when, out of town on a business trip, you ask your significant other to take a picture or video of your primary fermenter and email it to you so you can keep an eye on fermentation until you get home.
That's just got geek written all over it.
He's one of us. Stephen from Escanaba, Michigan. You hear the words check pills, and the first thing you don't think of is your blood pressure medication. I think that was your favorite, Steve.
I like that one.
Check your pills.
Check your pills.
Andy from London, Ontario. You know you're a home brewer when you walk down the grocery store aisle looking at products and say, hey, I could ferment that. And he told a story about fermenting lemon lime, like generic lemon lime soda pop. So he lives
prison beer.
Yeah, he lives the way he practices what he preaches. Bob from Lucky Dog Brewery in DeLand, or is it Deland, Florida. You know you're a home brewer when you refer to taking a shower as sparging yourself. And Sam from Vienna, Illinois, or is it Vienna?
It's probably Vienna.
You know you're a home brewer when your wife asks you to mash the potatoes and you start heating strike water.
That's great.
That's definitely one of my favorites. And Ryan from Vaughn, Montana. MT is Montana, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I get the M states mixed up. You know you're a home brewer when your friends say, would you stop talking about the darn beer and just drink it?
That's pretty much sums up our lives at parties.
And Ryan, for extra credit, also had some additional ones. You take your wife on a nice Sunday drive that happens to pass the scrapyard. You buy a new computer so you can rob the fan and hard drive magnets out of your perfectly good old computer. And you tell your wife homebrewing saves money on beer as you stand in front of $1,000 worth of copper and stainless steel. So, thanks everybody. And I'll be emailing you guys to get your information. And thanks, Steve, and thanks, Andy, for helping out and volunteering to drink this beer tonight.
Well, James, it's been tough duty. I'm glad I could make this roll call because this has been a truly enlightening evening and has prompted me to brew some Belgian beers, which I have never brewed before.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, James, I feel honored to get to share this beer with you. I really appreciate Alex for hooking us up with this. What can I say? Getting to hang out with you and drink great beers, can't beat it. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. We will talk to you next week.